who art in all places and fillest all things, treasure of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us from every stain and save our souls, O gracious Lord. To the prayers of our holy fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen.
Mm.
Well, good
Me.
evening. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is our fourth gathering for the Orthodoxy 101. Tonight, God willing, it will be short, depending on the discussion, depending on the questions. We have three items I do want to talk about. Basically, we're just we're following the book, and depending on like when I look at it, see which one can I go together, and even if they don't go together, like what we can cover in an hour and a half. So tonight we are going to talk about the saints, al-Qaddisin, who they are, or like what is the church in general, teach about them, the canons, or what we can call the rules, and then the church arts, also in general, without going into the details. And when I say church arts, iconography, architecture, music, and stuff like this. As a reminder, next week, God willing, we're not going to have, we're not going to meet for obvious reason, because next Thursday, God willing, is our Holy Thursday. And at 7 p.m., God willing, we will have uh, the 12 Gospels, the service of the 12 Gospels. Okay, or we call it the service of the Passion of Christ, or the service of the crucifixion of our Lord. Okay, and God willing, um, we'll continue what's called Bright Thursday, right? Bright Thursday, or Renewal Thursday, as we have it in Arabic. Khamis at-Tajdidat, as we call the Bright Week in Arabic, we call it the Renewal Week. Anyway, so tonight we will talk about those three things in general: saints, canons, and the church arts. I have one slide. It doesn't have bullet points. I don't have many bullet points, but I put like an icon or a picture of those main things. Let me just make sure I have this, and then share the screen. Share screen. Walid, can I? Probably. Oh, yes, I can. Thank you. Mhm. I just have one, and then I'll try to like point out to some of these. What they. Oops, that's not what I meant. Okay, so the saints, al-Qaddisin. It's we know a lot of saints, and they're always, every service we mention saints names, and we know a lot of saints, and we name our people, our families and family members after saints. But let's just have a general introduction about what they are, who they are. The saints are those who literally share the holiness of God. It says in Leviticus 11:44, and in the first epistle of Peter 1:16, it says, "Be holy, for I, your God, am holy." Be holy, for I, your God, am holy. So, saint is somebody who is trying to emulate, be holy like God is. And when we say like God, that means like Jesus is. Okay? In their lives, the Christian vision of God stands out very clearly. We see it in their life when we read about their life, or when we hear about their life of these saints. We see how what God intends for us as his creation, as his people, what he wants us to be, how he wants us to be. This is how we see, this is what we see in those people that we call saints. um, uh, I might not, like, again, I might not cover everything about the saints. So after we finish that section about the saints, any questions that pop to your head, like how can we decide about the saints? How it is the saint is decided in the church? We can definitely talk about stuff like this. Okay, if you have that kind of questions. Um, the lives of the saints bear witness to the authenticity and truth of the Christian gospel. the sure gift of God's holiness to man. So again, these people that we call saints, they bear witness. They are witnesses. They are the if I can call them, how am I going to word this? Like the action of the Gospels, the actions of the Gospel. So in them, when we see them, when we experience them, when we read about them, we actually know what the Gospel is about. We have a saint, Saint Francis of Assisi. He says once, and I'm pretty sure he's the one who says it. He says, I think he is, but anyway, what we care about is what I'm going to say. He says, "Preach the gospel, and if you can, use words." So basically, preach the gospel by the way you live, by the way you act, by the way you behave, and then talk to people about it. Well, in Gospel of Matthew, here's the book, here's the Bible. In the book of Matthew, it says 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? Or, it says do this, don't do this, or oh, look how Jesus. So live the gospel. What's more important is to live the gospel more than just like talk about it or just like hand somebody a book and read about it. And that's what we mean by the saints bearing witness to the authenticity and the truth of the Christian gospel. In the church, we have different classifications of saints. That doesn't mean that one is more important than the other. It's just the way we name them. We hear that, apostles, that's one name. So when we say Saint Andrew, we say, oh, Saint Andrew the apostle. Um, uh, um, uh, Again, Saint Nathaniel, oh, the apostle. Saint Barnabas, the apostle. Just like his title, what he was, basically how he was, if I can say, or some people were apostles. We have evangelists. When we refer to Saint Matthew, we always say Saint Matthew. We don't just say Saint Matthew. We say Saint Matthew the evangelist. You know what I mean? Saint Luke the evangelist. Even in their official names, when we look at when we look at their official names, if I can say, it's always has the title after it. So we have apostles, we have evangelists, we have fathers. And when we say by fathers, usually fathers, that means they were hierarchs, bishops or priests or clergy in general. Okay. That's why, fathers, that's another title. So we say our father among the saints, John Chrysostom, among, our father among the saints, or our father, Saint Basil the Great, Saint Gregory. So again, just different titles. Prophets, when we say prophet Daniel, prophet Isaiah, prophet Job, all of these, prophet David, all of these, people who got the name, I'm just need people that keep, that's it. Oh, it's fine. I just need to, we don't need any more internet. It's just, I'm getting all these text messages and I get lost right away. Just thinking, it's like, oh, who's this now? Anyway, so prophets, confessors. And what does that mean, confessors? Not like somebody who just went for confession, more that they confessed the faith and they got, if I can say, reprimanded for it in a way, that they got some kind of punishment. They did not die for, like they were not killed, but they were tortured about it. So we'll have Saint Maximus the Confessor, like a saint's name, that his title is Confessor. Martyrs, of course, like we say, Saint George, the martyr, Saint Dimitrios, Saint John the Baptist, all these people who basically died for the faith. They were not only tortured, but they lost their life for the faith. Righteous. And then there's one title I'll say, it's called, some saints get this title. It's called Full for Christ. Fool as like Fool for Christ. Al-Mutahabil. Ahbal in Arabic, we'll say, like not like, kind of like stupid, if I can, forgive me for the, but it's like, what does that mean? Like, we'll have saints, like Saint so and so, the fool for Christ. And I'll just read, I'll say a little bit about them, because everything else, like all the other titles, we know what they are, but it's just like this fool for Christ. We don't have many saints in the church that they have this title, but we have few actually. These saints are that have the title "Fool for Christ." These are they who, through their total disregard for the things that people consider so necessary, clothing, food, money, houses, security, public reputation, etc., have been Christian gospel of the kingdom. It's people who disregard anything that people consider necessary. So they'll be on literally like a homeless. And we've had saints who've done that, who what they've done is they left. There's, I can't remember her name, but she was from a noble family, and she wanted to join the monastery, like she wanted to become a nun. And after a while, she actually left and became a nun, and then went back for whatever reason. I don't remember all the exact details of her life, but she left the monastery and then went back and literally lived as a homeless person right outside her parents' palace. And she looked as if like she's just another homeless, but she lived a life. She was an enlightenment for a lot of people around her. But that's how she basically got the title "Fool for Christ." That somebody who never cared about himself at all with anything. At least maybe saints, like Saint John Chrysostom, or some major saints that who are very highly respected in the church, but they still somehow they lived in somewhere under a roof. They still ate something, they or like something that they made. They showered whenever, whatever in the old days they used to shower. But not only this, these people, like these fool for Christ, didn't do any of these. But on top of this, they were living a Christian, they still fasted, they still prayed anytime, every time they get a chance, and making it as of course, like a part of their life. But in the end, they deserve to be called saints. So we have all these different titles for the saints, but at the end of the day, they're all, in a way, there's no one, like I say, better. And if you remember from 2 weeks, or from last week's gospel, when James and John asked Christ, put us on the right hand, put us, put us next to you, as if like we're somehow better than anybody else. No, none of the saints in God's eyes are like somehow one is more important than the other, regardless how they died or what they've done. And actually, by the way, the Fool for Christ name, they take the name, we are fools for Christ's sake. It's in 1 Corinthians 4:10, and it's repeated it's also in 3:18. We are fools for Christ's sake. Okay, that is just like in general about the saints. What I can say, I do want to add, this like from a practical point of view, a lot of times we become so attached to these saints that they become like God for us. And one important thing is to keep in mind that those saints are a bridge at the end of the day. They never lived their life for their own, glorification. That's why they earned their sainthood, not because they were going after, to show themselves. So it is very important to always consider them, that they are a bridge, people who we can emulate, we can, learn from at the end of the day, for us to come to Christ, to be united with Christ. So we learn like somebody to rely on. The saint is like somebody that we rely on, we learn from, in order, we read their life stories. It's like a very important, and a lot, actually there are books that usually you'll have them in all kinds of languages, life of saints, and you just read their lives, and in it you can, like when you read these the life stories, you'll get to learn what kind of struggles, suffering they went through, or how they lived a righteous life even if they didn't go through any suffering or anything. But the main point that we do not stop where the saint is. Okay, it is the saint is an image, is a window, is a bridge for us to, for Christ. I'll give you an example. In Greece, in the second biggest city in Greece, which is Thessaloniki, there is a major saint in from Thessaloniki who is Saint Dimitrios. Saint Dimitrios is a very well reputed. We celebrate him on October 26th. Eleni might know a lot, about Saint Dimitrios. It's like maybe, I don't know, Eleni, what do you think? Maybe 60% of the Greeks named, man named Dimitri.
Either Dimitri or George.
Exactly. It's like it has to be Yorgo, Dimitri. I mean,
and Nick.
Yeah.
And Nick.
The chances of saying, Nick, Nico, Yorgo, or Dimitri for somebody you don't know their names, but you're gonna get, most likely you're gonna get it right. But to the point, in Thessaloniki, they say there's this, like, they talk about that if somebody tells you, if somebody swears by God, like, oh, God forbid I don't do this, like, I didn't do this, most likely they'll be lying. Like if they swear by God, like, I swear to God I didn't do this, like, or I didn't, if I say I swear to God I didn't do it, most likely there's a chance they've done it. But they have no problem saying, I swear to God, or use God for some kind of vain, thing. But they say in for these Greek people from that city, if they say I swear to Saint Dimitrios I didn't do it, there is no way they are so, like, they're so, like, like they definitely did not do it. There is no way they're lying about it, because there is no way they want to upset Saint Dimitrios, because somehow Saint Dimitrios is gonna, like, come, or somehow he's even mightier than God, and that's a problem. That's a problem. Yes, we honor him, and we offer whatever we can from prayers and everything, but we have to, in a way, draw the line, and realize that we have to draw the line somewhere and say, okay, it's not like he's more important than Jesus or than God, or and a lot of times we see it even in our own communities for Saint George or other saints, that we just, like, we just we make them so divine that even more important than God himself. Okay, I did want to just say those couple of things. Any questions about um, um, uh, um, the saints, any in general, or so Deacon Nicola, or Isa, somebody, Deacon Nicola.
Isa, go ahead. I'm monitoring it, Father.
Thank you, appreciate it. Isa.
Isa, go ahead.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Deacon. Can you elaborate on holy? The beginning, we said, "Be holy, for I am holy." There is, of course, a common meaning of holy, but can you elaborate on
Sure.
it?
Well, in holy, in a way, life, living a life of holiness, living the life, God being love, being, being loving. That's the main thing. And then, righteous, and all of these good things that, also be holy like I am holy. And then we're called, like he is divine, we are called also in a way to be divine. Like, is that like, or like what, like, is that like, what does that mean to be holy? Is that like, what do you?
Yeah. What does it mean to be holy?
Well, it's to live a life like Christ at the end. So Christ was loving, caring, sacrificial, all of these good parts. That's what we call, and by this we gain our holiness, basically.
Just walking in his shoes.
Well, exactly. That's one way we can. So yes, we're gonna fall, of course, definitely. And none of the saints were perfect. We have a lot of saints that even they will talk about their own struggles. We heard about last week about Saint Mary of Egypt on Sunday, and what kind of life she lived. And even it tells you in her life, even the first few years, like living a life of, being in fasting and living in the wilderness, and all of this. And she was tempted for many years before that. So being holy is just imitating God's love, sacrifice, righteousness. At least that's one way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Well, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So do the saints more or less act? I mean, I don't really pray to the saints necessarily. I pray to the Virgin Mary and to Jesus.
Mhm.
But do they act, would you say they're like intercessors for us,
Yeah.
just like the Virgin Mary is?
Exactly. That's why, there's somebody that we look at their life, and
Right.
in the end, I can say like how the church decides who's a saint or who's not a saint. I mean, we might have many people who passed away and died, and we have no idea that they were anything holy, because but in God's eyes, they are holy and they are saints, like as important as Saint John Chrysostom or Saint John the Baptist, or Saint Dimitrios or Saint George, but we just never knew them. The church looks at people who lived a life and somehow lived a holy life, a righteous life, that they defended the faith, they lived the faith, they loved everybody, and then especially if they died for their faith, and then got like people around them could not love them. I'll give an example, and I'm not like trying, God forbid, taking God's or the church place, but like when we lost Mariana and Ammu Kamil, I mean, people like the whole community like is mourning their loss, and everybody will talk about their how much they were loving, and how much of a big part of their of the life of the parish. Imagine that when you have people not only on the level of St. George approaching somebody like Mariana and Kamil, but like somebody like, I don't know, the country, the whole country, or a huge area. So those people who are actually intercessors, that's why anyway, when we look at every time we celebrating saints, like saints, we do liturgy for Saint George or Saint Dimitrios or Saint John, whatever. Even when we look, when we hear their hymns or we read their hymns, they'll be talking about like, well, here's what they've done. They lived a life, this. But at the end of the day, you'll see in the hymn, so they can something like, so the light of Christ was shining in them and they were interceding for us, they were praying for us or something. So yes, they are definitely intercessors and people we look up to. A lot of Protestant churches always believe like, what, we don't need anybody between me. I don't need anybody between me and God. I don't even need the Virgin Mary. It's me and God. Like, sure, at the end of the day, but like, well, if I give you just a very simple example, if you're into, I don't know, soccer or something, and you're trying to get better in it, wouldn't you like anybody who has like any like soccer, or I don't know, even if you're interested in architecture, wouldn't you like go and like have like be interested of what other architectures and like famous architectures know? Or in soccer, wouldn't you be like knowing more about the players and you want to follow those major players to learn from and look how their techniques of playing and all of this? And kind of the same thing when it comes how to to help us be closer to Christ, those saints. When we read about their lives, when we see what they've done in their life and how they impacted their communities, so we just imitate them in a way. But we don't want to be, like I said, the other part, the double-edged sword. The other part is when we make them so divine that we don't see, that we stop at them. It's like I said, in Greece, they see Saint Dimitrios. They even have Holy Week for him. The week leading for October 26th, his feast day, it's called Holy. They have a Holy Week for Saint Dimitrios. So they start celebrating his feast like a week before, of like hymns and services and all of this. It's like, that's a bit too much. It's a bit too much. As if like now, that's it. It's him and no one else. Like, no, it's just, we don't do a Holy Week for a saint the same way we do a Holy Week for Christ, because Christ is God, and Saint so and so, whatever, is just the saint. He's yes, we're not, we say that we're not as worthy as this saint, of course, but not to the point that we make them God, and we forgot about Christ, that they're just the bridge to get to Christ. And of course, we ask for their intercessions, and we know that we have a lot of miracles done by saints, either by appearing to people or healing some people. But even when they do this, they don't